Hello there. Every time this year, this time of year, we are doing coffee tastings and things for Meanwood Festival, and we wanted to try and make a video for you about an introduction to brewing coffee. I'm sure you guys have been brewing lots of coffee at home when your coffee shops have been shut, and say if there's a second wave, here's some tips for how to brew coffee at home. We are not making a brew guide here. So for your specific brewing items, whether that's a cafetiere or AeroPress or V60, Coffee on the Crescent up in Hyde Park Corner, they've done some good ones for their customers, so maybe check them out. This is just some tips for how to get the most out of your coffee at home, how to tweak it to taste it better. So to start with, I want to understand what's going on when coffee's brewing. Think about your cafetiere. Your grinds are soaking in the water and compounds are dissolving, and this is what we call extraction, and at some point we pass a filter through to stop the extraction process. And think about the cafetiere again. If it's sticking too long in the coffee, the water's staying too long in the coffee, it's going to get bitter and dry, and we call this over extraction. And then too little, it tastes weak or sour, astringent. These are flavours we don't want either. So here are three variables to how we can control that extraction, and you could think about at home. So the first one is brew ratio. This is talking about the amount of dry coffee to the wet coffee that you mix it with. And with specialty coffee, if you're buying from a local roaster, 60 grams a litre is about the best place to start. And you'll need probably some scales, and just any gram scales that you have for baking with at home will do fine. But a good place to start is 60 grams a litre. And if you're trying to work that out, so that's 15 grams per mug of coffee. Most mugs are about 240 grams. So a useful tip is also that a milliliter of water is also a gram of water. The second is your grind, and you can tweak your grind. Say if it's going finer, that's going to increase the surface area of the coffee, and so the exposures to the coffee, to the water, is going to increase exponentially. So the finer the grind, the quicker things are going to extract, the stronger, the more compounds are going to extract, the bitter, the drier the tastes are going to arrive more quickly. And so you can control this again if you have a grinder at home, get a burr grinder, not a spinning blade. They start about £20 if you're doing a manual one, or about £70–80 if you're going to use an electric one, or get your local coffee roaster to grind it for you. Something to have in mind is that your supermarket coffee will probably grind a little bit finer, and it'll be a little bit darker roast. So that brew ratio we were mentioning a minute ago, try and get that maybe slightly less, like 50 grams per litre, because it will extract a lot quicker. And your third variable, which I'm about to talk about, is time. If you're using supermarket coffee, you probably want to brew a little bit quicker as well. So third principle is time, and just like cafetiere, just remember, if you're sitting in a cafetiere, the coffee's sitting in the cafetiere for too long, it's going to get bitter, and if it's too short, it's going to be weak. And just like any other, whether it's V60 or whether it's AeroPress, your grind size will probably directly affect the time you need to brew it with, and they kind of work together. So say in your cafetiere, if you're grinding finer, then you want to shorten your brew time. And these are three variables that you could tweak to try and hit that perfect extraction where things are tasting sweet, not bitter or sour. The last thing you should think about is your water. And in Meanwood Valley, we have issues, I think, from what I measure at my coffee shop and at my home. We've got really hard water. It seems when I use those drop tests for fish tanks, it's like 216, which is really in the hard territory. And you can, when you're using really fine, nice tasting coffee from your local specialty roaster, it can get in the way of the flavour. And so I found that if you buy bottled water, or if you have nice water, softened water somehow, there's a new kettle out called the Peak that softens the water for you. Waitrose own essential water is actually quite good. So that's about 122 to 150 parts per million. So that's in the medium. Or what I've really found is Ashbeck Tesco water is even better. That's about 80 parts per million, and it really helps not get in the way of the flavour of your coffee that your roaster and your farmer has worked so hard to make tasting good. And the other thing is temperature, of course. Temperature, you want it around 94, 96 degrees, and anything too much lower, the compounds extracting might be different and won't taste as good, and a little bit more, and you might start moving into dry, burning territory as well. So there's some things to think about, and I hope you've listened and it's been helpful anyway. See you later.